YouTube is working. Say something. I'm back for to it. Make sure you like and subscribe, and you always watch for video.
When Jarrell Pryor agreed to meet a woman he connected with online, he thought it was just a first date. He had no idea it would be his last night alive. Jarrell was a proud father, a girl dad. Now that little girl has to face a world without him. No more bedtime stories, no father-daughter dances, and one day,
It's why you gotta think with the big head, not the little head, bro. Just because you see pictures and she look good, bro, you don't know this person. Even though when it comes to social media, that's like Instagram, Facebook, whatever, it is semi like a dating app. Hey, I don't link that with people before, bro, but you gotta be careful, bro. You for sure got to be careful because it's like, especially like you gotta to read between the signs. If a person is just too on you, especially with fellas, if a girl is just too on you, mind you, we the one that chase. They don't chase us. It's rare that a girl comes up to us. Does it happen? Yes. I said it's rare. I didn't say it never happens. But you gotta look at the way she is on you. If she's just being extra thirsty, come on, like hold on. It's either you gonna be you might not be beneficial towards me health wise in all aspects. I mean, somebody might try to get me, or you might murder me. And them are two L's I don't need. One that I can't come back from. All right, both of you probably can't come back from. So you gotta be careful, bro, when it comes to these females, bro. A lot of these girls, especially a lot of them, be dealing with people who are crash outs. If she looks extra good, it might be a person who's willing to crash out about her. Meaning, he ain't let go. She looks good. The box is too far. He ain't moved on. She's trying to move on, and you're the person that she's trying to move on to, and then he's not. He's not going for that. So you gotta be careful, bro. There's just so many. It's so many
no
ways,
dad
bro.
waiting at the end of the
Crazy.
aisle to walk her into a new chapter of life. What started as a simple night out allegedly ended in a deadly setup. Indianapolis police say Jarrell was ambushed, allegedly lured into a trap by the very woman he'd hoped to get to know. She reportedly was not alone. Detectives believe she was working with her boyfriend. An alleged plan to rob Jarrell turned violent and ended in murder. I'm Kennedy Walker, and I'll walk you through the chilling final moments of Jarrell Pryor's life and the twisted betrayal that left a community searching for justice. For this story, we take you to Indianapolis, Indiana, January 2025. According to court documents obtained by Law and Crime, Jarrell Pryor's murder began with a text and ended with an alleged deadly setup. Just hours before he was killed, police say Jarrell messaged a young woman he'd met online, 19-year-old Alexis Hawkins. The message was just 3 words: when you free. The affidavit says Hawkins responded. She told him when she was available and agreed to go on a date. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. While she was allegedly texting Jarrell, Hawkins was reportedly messaging someone else on Instagram, her boyfriend, 18-year-old Brian Winston Jr. Investigators say Hawkins was working out the details of her date with Pryor while secretly coordinating with Winston behind the scenes. Jarrell had no idea, no clue that Hawkins was in a relationship or that anything could go wrong. It was just a date, and maybe, if things went well, a chance to meet up again. But police say it was never about the date, it was a trap. That night, Jarrell met Hawkins in person. They sat together in his car, and shortly before 1 a.m., Hawkins' boyfriend allegedly appeared and opened fire. Jarrell Pryor, just 26 years old, was shot and killed. A young father, now gone. His daughter, just 2 years old, left behind. As police began their investigation, they discovered the messages between Pryor and Hawkins. They then obtained a warrant to search Hawkins' Instagram account, and what they allegedly found raised even more red flags. Investigators say she searched phrases like news today near me, and shootings Keystone, all on the day of the murder. Police also discovered that Hawkins had allegedly messaged several people asking for a ride near the location.
She knew she knew it was coming. She's a full-blooded setup artist for sure. She's searching the news sites. She's looking for a ride before the dude even comes. She knows she's not leaving with him. She know he finna come do his thing, and she gotta leave on her own. That's crazy. That's crazy. R.I.P. and condolences, bro.
Of the shooting around the time Jarrell was killed. When detectives questioned Hawkins the following week, she allegedly claimed she couldn't remember much about that night. She reportedly insisted she didn't have a weapon and told police, "No weapon to say I did anything. My fingerprints aren't on anything." When asked if her fingerprints might be found inside of Jarrell's car, Hawkins reportedly replied, "It's not going to be on no weapon, though." But the moment investigators asked about a message she sent saying she was going to make a, quote, play, Hawkins allegedly stopped talking and asked for a lawyer. She was arrested shortly after and charged with murder and robbery resulting in serious bodily injury. Winston was charged as well with murder, felony murder, and robbery. Now, Jarrell's family is left to pick up the pieces. His parents, once looking forward to watching their son become the man and father he aspired to be, are now raising the little girl he left behind. His mother, Tamika Wiley, told WXIN, "I'm broken inside." And just weeks ago, Jarrell's parents celebrated their granddaughter's 3rd birthday, a milestone that should have been filled with joy, laughter, and her father's love. Instead, it was a day marked by absence. No Jarrell, no hugs from dad, just a little girl too young to understand why her dad never came home. Justice may come in a courtroom, but for this family, the real sentence is living without Jarrell. And joining me to talk more about this is legal expert Andy Baldwin. Andy, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's just jump right in. How does a case like this typically move through the Indiana legal system once charges are filed?
Well, the first thing that's going to happen is these 2 defendants are going to have to get lawyers. And so there's going to be an initial hearing very quickly, and the judge is going to find out, what are you guys doing about lawyers? And then the real work begins. And because
I don't like, even though people, everybody deserves, a chance at justice, right? Or a chance at court. People who do this don't deserve that. You don't deserve to use or to have that privilege. You set this person up. You took this person's life for nothing. We're going to send you to jail. No court. No, cause me personally, if I was a lawyer, I wouldn't defend you.
In a case like this, I think you really need to get some quick action with your lawyers and figuring out what you're going to do. A lot of times in my world, you have some time to
19
to kind of
your life is
dig
over.
into the facts, dig into the evidence, and see exactly what the state has. But in a case like this, when you have 2 people that are co-defendants, you may need to go to the prosecutor to get that deal first if you are in fact guilty.
And what are the first steps that prosecutors take after an arrest in a homicide case? What do you think they're doing right now behind the scenes?
Oh, prosecutors, once the charge is filed, they really just depend on their detectives and their investigators to take the lead role in terms of gathering evidence. And they'll be communicating, the prosecutor will be communicating with the detectives and saying, hey, maybe I want you to go get a geo tracking off of one of the cell phones to make sure where they are, things like that. But these are, one of the detectives on this case is pretty well known throughout Indianapolis as a very good homicide detective, and he's probably doing a good job on his own of figuring out what needs to be done.
And can you walk us through just how police build a case using digital communications like texts and DMs via social media? Because I know that was crucial in this case, according to court documents.
Yeah, it's bad. Usually
I wonder what
bad
she
news
was
for
saying
defense
to her
lawyers
boyfriend
nowadays,
though.
because it's the phone that you carry around contains geo tracking information. So if they want to know where you were at certain times, they can locate that. So that's a problem. Texting is a real problem because it gives a context of what might have been going on. So in this case, I can tell you what the detectives very quickly
that stuff never deletes.
sent
People thinking they
letters
good.
to Google,
I deleted that. No, you didn't.
Meta saying, preserve the evidence. We need the evidence preserved. But on top of that, while they're preserving that evidence, they're getting search warrants for the phone. So Alexis, who's one of the defendants, they have her phone. Brian Winston, the other defendant, he tried to break his phone, according to the probable cause affidavit at least. And whether he was successful or not, we don't know yet. But they're going to get search warrant for those phones, so they do everything right. and then they're going to start going and digging through the Instagram and Snapchat and all the other things, direct messages from Facebook, and
Trying to get them all the evidence that
see
they
if they can
need.
tell the
It's in the
story.
text
If
messages,
the
bro. 'Cause that's
investigation
crazy.
can point toward one or both of them more definitively than currently.
Now, both suspects, they were charged with murder, and I think Brian was the one that was charged with felony murder. What's the
Because he pulled
legal
the
difference
trigger.
between murder and felony murder under Indiana law?
Yeah, so actually, it looks like it's Alexis that's charged with the felony murder. It looks like what they're
Oh,
trying to say is that Alexis was in a car with the deceased Jarrell Pryor, and I think from reading it's a 12-page probable cause affidavit, and what they're kind of saying is she Alexis took Jarrell on a date, or he took her on a date, but she was cluing Mr. Winston, her actual boyfriend, in on where they were going to be.
this sound like just like how it was for Julio thing. The people was following him and they was telling the hitters where where they're at. You're actually on the date with him, telling the people where y'all going, what's going on, or telling not the people but the person. So this is in my opinion. This should be premeditated, especially more than likely when he hit you up. When to plan the date, you said you already think like, hey, this what I'm gonna do. You probably was laying with your boyfriend in that moment. It's why I don't DM girls, bro, because you just never know, bro.
And so forth, and that Mr. Winston then at some point in time came in knowing where they were and shot and killed Mr. Pryor. And so Alexis is charged with felony murder. And felony murder is, hey, I did not actually do the shooting, but I knew what was going on, and there was going to be a robbery. And I was a participant in the robbery, which is a felony. And when somebody gets killed during the commission of a felony, then you can be charged with felony murder, even though you had nothing to do with the shooting.
Nah, she should. She deserved that.
Could this be considered even a conspiracy to commit murder, even if only one person fired the gun?
It definitely could be, and I think they may have to amend their charging information later on. But conspiracy means you actually have to prove the murder. Felony murder is such a problem for defense lawyers, because a lot of times what happens is nobody was intending to be killed. The two participants, if Alexis and Brian, the two defendants, were actually just trying to rob the person, then in reality, they weren't committing murder. They were just committing robbery. And that's why the felony murder matters. A conspiracy to commit murder would mean that you would have to show that they actually intended to kill this young man.
Yeah, I know we just talked about the charges could be upgraded to that, but is there any way that anyone could take some type of plea or even going to manslaughter, or is that just not possible with a case as strong as this one?
Oh, anything's possible. And I don't know how strong the case is at this point. I mean, I've read through the probable cause affidavit, and thinking like a defense lawyer does, I see that both of them have arguments that they can make. And that's why I think whoever gets to the prosecutor first, may get the better plea offer. However, you have to start with the presumption of innocence. Of course, I'm a defense lawyer, so this is what I do. And I start with the presumption of innocence. And I would be asking, if I had either Alexis or Brian, I'd be asking them maybe sooner rather than I normally would in a case, hey, it's time to kind of tell me what might have happened. Because if you have any involvement at all, I need to go to the prosecutor and cut this deal before the other side gets to the prosecutor. So yeah, a plea agreement could be on the table for sure.
And can you walk us through just what that looks like,
They don't
since you
deserve
do
that,
have a lot
bro.
of experience with that? What could both sides be arguing when they go to the prosecution when they're trying to get a deal?
Yeah, the way I would argue it is we'll take Alexis, for example. Alexis, when you
My thing is like this is planned though. They said if you plan it, that's premeditated, right? Because I guarantee, once he hit her up and said, "Hey, I want to take you out," she more likely would either was with him in that moment, or she texted him, "Hey, this dude want to talk. We can do this." They started planning. Hey, I'm gonna do this. We gonna go here, or while I'm doing this, you should be doing this. That's planning.
the probable cause affidavit, she denies having any involvement in the shooting, but at
You
least on the
planned it.
probable cause affidavit paperwork, she does admit that she
You
was there
knew
when the
your
shooting
boyfriend was
happened,
crazy. You knew what he was gonna
and
do.
that she was scared and that she ran away. And so it could be that she points the finger at Brian Winston, her boyfriend, and says he's a jealous guy. He showed up, and I had no idea what was going to happen, and he shot and killed this guy because he's a jealous guy. Brian and I, my boyfriend, we were fighting earlier in the day, so I went out with a different guy and my jealous boyfriend. And so when you go to the prosecutor, you say, "This is."
But see that you knew what he was. Again, you knew that you had a crazy boyfriend. You knew that they told pistols. You knew that hey, he might try something if he catch you out with somebody else. So why didn't you tell him hey, if we gonna go out, we should go far out, hour away, leave phones. Like you should again, people, you know who you're dealing with. You ladies, girl, whatever. Y'all know your significant other. You know if this person is a crash out or not. Why put this other person in this situation when you know you're dating a crash out? You dealing with craziness. What you think they're gonna do to somebody that they have no feelings towards? They have no emotion towards this person. You're only still here by the grace of God and because this person has love for you. This person they have no feelings towards. They gonna crash out on that nigga.
What my client's going to say if we go to trial, and she's willing to come forward and incriminate Mr. Winston, but she wants, you start with swinging for the fences. She wants all charges dismissed. Now Mr. Winston, on the other hand, reading through the probable cause affidavit, I don't see that there's not a whole lot of evidence, direct evidence, that links him to the crime. So if I were him, I'd be saying, I'd say I have no idea what happened here. Alexis, my girlfriend, she leads kind of a wild life. I mean, when you read the probable cause affidavit, Kennedy, you see that Alexis's mom kicked her out of the house because Alexis was hanging out with pimps, and that's her own words, the mom's words, and other kind of ne'er-do-wells. And so if
That's
I'm
this generation.
Brian Winston's attorney, I'm saying, he has nothing to do with this. And Alexis is hanging out with these kind of, this wild crowd, and anybody could have killed her. And so, I don't really know what you want me. My involvement is nothing. So there's nothing I can do. Now, I don't know that Brian's going to be able to say ever, like, I knew what happened with Alexis. Because then it would implicate himself, unless he's going to say that Alexis told me what happened. But when Kennedy, when you read the probable cause affidavit, you're going to see that at this, whatever happened about 1 a.m, roughly, and about 5:30, a few hours later, when Alexis and Brian, her boyfriend, are communicating on by text, and they're saying, "I love you, I'm sorry." But they don't talk anything about shooting or a shooting or a killing or anything like that. So it just seems like a boyfriend and a girlfriend that were in a fight. So there's a lot of stuff going on in this case where a defense lawyer can make some hay.
Yeah, just so many moving parts. But do you think, and this is all speculation at this point, obviously, but do you think that Alexis would truly have an argument like the one you suggested, given the fact that they have her, alleged Instagram messages where she's planning everything with the boyfriend?
It's a little,
Yeah, like you got that.
it's a
Like
little unclear, honestly, when you read it. It's you can interpret things the way that you want. And by the way, I mean, just because she looks like she's wanting to rob somebody doesn't mean it was with it. In the probable cause affidavit, here it is. There, she does send like what I would say a really bad text out about hitting a lick, or the phrase "hitting a lick"
come on.
is street slang for I'm going to rob somebody and take
Yeah.
some of their stuff. And
Yeah.
she talks about hitting a lick, and that's pretty bad. But it doesn't mean that it was with Brian.
I get what you I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But what are the coincidences of that? Like that'd be a big coincidence. You talking about hitting a lick, and then in the same day, same moment, the person that you're with gets alive. Like that's a big coincidence. Like it's possible in in this world, you can never say 100% certain that nothing is possible because anything can possibly happen.
And Winston, I mean, if she's hanging out with lots of bad people, she could have been hitting a lick with anybody. And so
Hmm.
there's another wrinkle on this case as well. And I don't see Brian and Alexis being boyfriend and girlfriend too much longer. I will tell you that much. I mean, I think somebody's going to have to turn on the other here shortly, and they'd probably be wise to
It's
do
gonna be
that
Alexis.
unless they are absolutely not guilty. But there seems to be too much evidence to support that theory.
Right. I'd be surprised if they're still boyfriend and girlfriend, given the fact that they're both sitting in jail right now. I feel like that's pretty hard to maintain a relationship while that's going on. But
You would be
both sus
surprised.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. Anything is possible. Well, both suspects were charged with robbery resulting in serious
Mhm.
bodily injury. Can you explain what that means in this context?
Yeah, it's not very complicated. It is kind of what it says that it is. When you are committing a robbery and you hit somebody with the butt of a gun or you shoot them, and Indiana has a definition for serious bodily injury, and if they meet the definition, the person that's hit or shot meets that definition by their injuries, then you would be charged with robbery causing serious bodily injury in the course of that robbery. And it's prosecutors are going to throw everything against the wall typically and see what sticks because they don't know how the thing's going to shake out ultimately.
That is.
And we just spoke about the possibility of one of the suspects taking a deal, but is it possible that only one of the suspects could be convicted while the other one is just acquitted?
Yeah, that sometimes that happens. Sometimes what happens, you will, as a lawyer, you go in and you get the deal first because typically you're going to get the better deal. But I've seen it happen before where the person goes in, gets the deal, testifies against the co-defendant, and then the co-defendant walks. Or
Wow.
the case falls apart and the prosecution offers a better deal than the first person. And so then the lawyer feels kind of bad about that. Like, maybe I should have not pled that thing out. So there's a lot of strategy on the defense side right now. Whoever they hire, whatever public defender they end up with, those people right at the beginning of a case like this, it's very crucial to plan it out in a smart way.
How does intent factor into a case where one suspect, allegedly lured the victim and another one allegedly pulled the trigger?
But because in the felony murder law of Indiana, it doesn't matter who pulls the trigger. It just
Yeah.
doesn't.
You was
And
with him.
so you better not have been a participant in the robbery. And that's why I think she's going to have to go with, if everything kind of shakes out, she's going to have to go with, if there's evidence, for example, that Brian, her boyfriend, showed up, there's geo tracking on his phone that shows that, then she's going to have to say, this came out of nowhere. I mean, this guy's jealous. He's angry. He came in and shot, and I left. And then when I told him later in the morning, when I told my boyfriend at 4:30 or 5:30 in the morning that I loved him, that's because I'm scared. I don't want him to think. Those are the kind of things that she's going to have to say in order to not be implicated in the robbery. But then again, like you said, Kennedy, there's text messages and internet evidence that she's planning to hit a lick or to rob somebody, and so that becomes very difficult. Then you're going to say, well, I was going to that's not the robbery I was talking about, it was a different robbery. And boy, once you start slicing that onion down, it's not very good usually for the client.
How do courts authenticate that type of digital evidence, like those Instagram DMs and the Google search history?
That's a great question, and we defense lawyers are always battling to you know cause a judge to maybe throw out that evidence, but it's really not that complicated. You get Google involved. There's a business record. They prepare. They send it to the prosecutor. They send it to you, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about it. You can
Mhm.
question who was on the device at the time and maybe it wasn't my client that sent that stuff out. It was her sister or something like that, or a neighbor. But the authentication process is actually not that complicated.
Now, both suspects, they are teenagers. Does their age impact how they'll be tried in Indiana? Are judges or juries more lenient when it comes to young defendants in violent crimes?
It's a great question, and I think in today's world it matters less and less about the age. As once you hit 18, I think juries They just want to see the facts, and they want to see, did the state prove its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Judges at sentencing time, it may have impact on them in terms of whether or not they're going to be a little bit more lenient on a sentence should there be a conviction. And the really, I'd say, if anybody's going to care about the age, it might be the prosecutor. The prosecutor might, if it's a close.
I feel like the age thing should only matter when if you like just turn 18 and below. No, you know your mind ain't 100% there. But then even then, it's like you in today's time, especially with the internet, bruh, nothing is new. You know the consequences of them action that you're taking. You again, you know you have a crash out. You know people who crash out. You know what they end up doing. They end up either crashing out on somebody, taking their life, doing something in their own life, or just doing things reckless. So therefore, you know what a crash out is. You know if this person is if you use a pistol on this person, you know by them being a human being that life might be over. No, man, like that age seems to only matter to a certain extent. To a certain extent, bro.
Call on whether to pull the trigger on a plea agreement. The prosecutor's looking at the case. They're like, maybe we
even them plea deals, bro. Like
case. Some of the facts may not go down the right way. So it's a young person, and they can start to psychologically think maybe we can give this person a little bit of a break, and it could have some impact on the prosecutor's decision in terms of a plea.
And the prosecutors, they are trying to prove, a setup. What evidence matters the most?
I'd say that internet texting evidence, geo-tracking evidence. I think that's going to matter. I think if the one of them turns on the other, that's obviously going to matter.
But it's going to be the girl.
Texting evidence.
It's going to be the girl.
The evidence off
that.
the phone is just devastating to so many defendants. It's like I want to tell people, if you're going to get into the life of
the girl was going to turn because her whole thing, my fingerprint not on the pistol, right? So that means she know who had the pistol. Because come on, bro, why would you say that? But it's like, bro, she's gonna be the first one because once they hit her with, that don't even matter. You're still getting the same time as this person. If you don't tell her something, there you go. He told me to do this. He wanted me to do this. I had to say this. I was scared for this. She's telling everything.
Just get rid of your phone.
Guarantee that.
It's going to be a lot easier. But then you also have to worry about video and so forth. They did find one video on this case at a liquor store that potentially showed Alexis in the vehicle with Mr. Pryor, who was the person that was killed. But Mr. Winston, her boyfriend, was not in that video. But we don't know if there was flock video of the car leaving or anywhere else. So there's still more to come, I'm sure.
If convicted, what kind of sentence could each suspect face?
They're facing 45 to 65 years, and in reality, that 45 is a mandatory minimum, meaning
wow,
the best they can do is 45 years. And in Indiana, currently, you have to serve 75% of that. So I'm not good with math. I don't know what that would be. I think it's 37 and a half years, something like that. So, yeah, that's why sometimes we as lawyers, what we're trying to do is get off of that mandatory minimum for murder down to a level 2 voluntary manslaughter. I mean, you never know. It could be a situation. You never know what's going to happen on a case like this. It could be self-defense, for crying out loud. Maybe the guy in the car
hit him with the you're done. You're done, ma'am. You're done.
Was doing something. You just
gotta
never know what's going to happen. But if
that's
you
the
can
minimum.
Get knocked down to voluntary manslaughter. I was angry. She was cheating on me, and then that knocks it down to a level 2 felony, which in Indiana carries 10 to 30 years, and that's not mandatory minimum. So the lawyer is always trying to get the thing pled down if the person is actually going to be found guilty, get it pled down to something more manageable so that the person, especially when they're young, that for the defense lawyer, that's a big deal when they're young, because then you can say, gosh, you're going to get out when you're 40. But when they're 40 already and they're going to get out when they're 75 or 80, then it's like you might as well roll the dice at that point in time. And that actually, I forgot to add that part is who does the age impact? In a lot of ways, the biggest impact is on the defense lawyer and the choices that you make and the risks that you're willing to take on behalf of your client.
Mm-mm-mm.
I'm surprised. So no one is looking at a life sentence for this?
They're not. They're not in Indiana. There's two above murder. You can file for what we say LWOP, or life without possibility of parole, or the death penalty. And the death penalty doesn't seem to apply here, but LWOP could apply, and potentially, if the prosecutor wanted to pursue that, it just never happens. The range of penalties for murder is so severe that there's really not and for most people it is a life without possibility of parole.
Could the victim's family pursue a civil case in addition to a criminal trial?
Sure, they could. Normally that doesn't happen just because they don't have any money, and but it does happen on occasion, but not typically.
Lastly, what role does public interest or media attention play in how prosecutors handle this case? There's no way for this to get tossed out of the city, right, because of the media attention?
Not anymore. I've been practicing over 30 years, and when I was much younger, it was somewhat common to get venued out because of publicity. But
you can't
because
do
of
that
the
no more?
internet and so forth, it's like,
You
where are you
still
going to
see
go?
it.
You can't go anywhere. I mean, the thing gets publicity everywhere it goes. And by the way, when you get into the courtroom and you're in with a jury, what judges know and what defense lawyers and prosecutors know is you would be amazed at how many people just don't know about the case, no matter how big it is. I've been in some very high profile cases, and you get in there and the people are like, yeah, I've never heard of it. And we're all just shocked at that.
Yeah,
In a
everybody
case like
don't know
this,
everything.
it's
You
getting
gotta,
some publicity in Indianapolis for sure, but it's not, next week they'll
especially when it comes to like social media timeline. Everybody has a different timeline, so therefore it might be things that everybody else don't see. But make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Condolences to that kid's family, man. That's sad.